Shepard felt a headache starting to form. So let me get this straight. Revan, Talai, and Legion not only managed to sit in one room together and not blow up the ship, but actually decided to work together to bring the migrant fleet back to Rannoch. But before they could send the Admiralty board the good news, Talai was summoned to trial for sending back active Geth and endangering the fleet. I was careful. I made sure to never send back any active parts. Talai protested. But you did send Geth materials back to the fleet, right? My father had a project. He needed the materials. The Quarian argued. I checked every part or piece I sent back myself. All of it was permanently inactive. But the board is accusing you anyway. How bad is this really? Bad. Anyone convicted of treason is considered dead by the rest of the flotilla. Any record of the individual will be erased and purged. It would be like they never existed at all. Talai explained. Shepard, I'd never be able to go home again. Shepard wanted to rub her eyes, but held off. Okay, we'll set course for the migrant fleet and get this straightened out. Have you been able to talk to your father about this? This isn't a secured or trusted ship. They wouldn't accept a message in case it was a possible attack. Which means you need to go there before we can convince anyone you didn't send an active Geth or endanger the fleet, Shepard sighed. Don't worry, Talai. We'll get this sorted out. Hopefully they don't take offense to the active Geth and several members of the team that could endanger the fleet. Oh. Revan found herself understandably annoyed after the sudden development with Tali'Zorah. Successfully negotiating an end to the Geth/Quarian hostilities would have advanced several goals all at once. But barely an hour after she had proposed the plan, one of the critical individuals to bringing it into reality was about to be wrapped up in politics that would make anything to do with Geth relations unfavorable at best. If Revan was alone, this might have been an irrecoverable setback. Fortunately for her, Revan was never truly alone. Settling into a meditative position, Revan opened herself up to the waves of the Force and attempted to peer into the future. While not a discipline she was particularly skilled at, she was still capable of getting bits and pieces when she focused her considerable power on a specific event she knew was coming. Such as the trail of a certain Quarian in a few days. Revan felt the world dissolve into a whirl of sound and color before shapes began to emerge from the chaos. The scenes presented were out of focus and fragmented, but Revan managed to make some things out. This isn't about Talai or her father. This is about... Shepard screamed at a few blurry figures. Tali'Zorah Vas Normandy. I am glad you came. I could delay them only so long. Aquarian Revan did not know greeted the Normandy team as they arrived. Shepard, 2 more incoming, Jacob shouted as he laid down covering fire. The Quarian from earlier stood on a pedestal above 3 others. Tali'Zorah, you are hereby found guilty of treason against the Quarian people and sentenced to exile. As far as we can tell, Talai, the Geth have killed everyone on the Alarii, your father included. To return the Geth to the control of their rightful masters. The only Geth that matter to me are the ones who took away our world. They are our children. That is why I cannot sanction whatever experiments you helped enable. A message needs to be sent. Revan groaned and hunched over as she released her hold on the visions. Then she groaned again as she organized the information she had seen. Politics, she spat in distaste. It just had to be politics. She needed to speak with Legion. Oh. This is Tali'Zorah Vas Nima Na Raya requesting permission to dock with the Raya. Tali'Zorah transmitted as the Normandy approached the migrant fleet. Our system has you flagged as Cerberus. Verify. Tali'Zorah provided the answer to the challenge and the ship was approved for docking. Though the young Quarian did request for a security and quarantine team to meet them at the docking bay since the Normandy did not follow the strict sterilization requirements a Quarian ship would need on account of their incredibly weak immune systems. While the ship was docking, Revan took the opportunity to sense what emotions were most prevalent on the ship. Unsurprisingly, the main ones were anger and fear. Fairly normal reactions when a popular well-known figure was suddenly accused of treason out of nowhere. The Quarians felt betrayed and they were looking for answers. Answers Tali'Zorah didn't have if what Revan had heard for the past few days was true. "You are up to something, Sith." Revan was actually a bit surprised that Justicar initiated a conversation with her. Ever since the confrontation in the hangar bay, Samara preferred to speak as little as possible with the Sith. She would communicate during any squad training Shepard insisted on, but the instant it was over it was back to silence and judgmental looks. "Of course I am," Revan said dismissively. "Apparently we are going to have to drag the galaxy kicking and screaming to prepare for the eventual arrival of the Reapers. Sitting around doing nothing would hardly be appropriate." Samara briefly gave the Sith a look before returning her gaze to where Tali'Zorah was doing her best to prepare Shepard on what was expected of her as ship captain during the trial. When powerful Asari meditate, they can sometimes feel the flow of mass effects shifting around the galaxy through their biotics, the Justicar said as if Revan did not speak. Those with the skill and experience to read the fluctuations can occasionally get a sense for events around them or even predict the future. Revan held back an amused huff. It was likely the latent force potential she had noticed in many Asari. They had simply misunderstood the source of the predictions due to their existing abilities. Whatever you have planned has the potential to send shockwaves throughout the galaxy. "Very good," Revan replied. "You are right. I plan to shake up the status quo a bit. We have the largest fleet in your galaxy wandering aimlessly doing nothing. A bit of a waste if you ask me. You risk causing chaos that will leave us weakened if the Reapers attack. Because the Council and their governments are seriously preparing for an attack? A bit of chaos might be just what we need." Samara said nothing for a bit. "My oaths prevent me from acting against you until the mission is complete. But if you go too far, I will not hesitate to kill you once it is finished." Revan smiled, though the Asari couldn't see. "You will try?" The Justicar simply nodded. The short conversation ended when the Normandy finished docking with the Raya. Revan moved to join Shepard and Tali'Zorah at the airlock. Neither one said anything to the Sith until Legion walked up and stood behind her. I don't think bringing a Geth onto the ship is a good idea," Tali'Zorah said as the first decontamination cycle started up. Revan just gave her a look. "It will be fine." The airlock door opened up, allowing all of them into the Raya where a security team was waiting. Said team took one look at Legion and the Normandy crew members immediately had a rifle shoved into their faces. "You were saying?" Per usual, Shepard didn't take people pointing weapons at her people very well and shoved her way, so she was staring down the apparent leader of the group. "We going to have a problem." "Not if you get that damn thing off my ship before you start an incident that makes that Ascension project fiasco with Cerberus look like a slow day on garbage detail," the Quarian captain snapped back. "You're worried about your ship. I get that." Shepard took a metaphorical step back. "But don't try and intimidate me." "Or what?" "Or I let her loose." Shepard pointed at Revan. While Revan wasn't the type to allow someone to use her as a threat, she didn't mind backing up the commander. A flex of the Force ripped the guns from the security team and had them all float in a lazy circle behind the Sith. Stunned by the casual display of power and at being so easily disarmed, the Quarians quickly backed down. The captain looked between Revan, Shepard, and then lingered on Tali'Zorah. "Fine. Not like we can stop you without this becoming a battle." He eventually relented. "Technically, I'm under orders to place Tali'Zorah under arrest pending the hearing. So, Talai, you're confined to this ship until the trial is over." "Thank you, Captain." "You better get going. Preparations got underway as soon as you arrived. The hearing is being held in the Garden Plaza. Just make sure you keep that thing under control." The captain shot one last look at Legion. "And Talai, good luck." As the four of them walked through the Raya, Revan took care to pay attention to the conversations surrounding them as they walked to Tolly's trial. The good news for the Quarian was that many simply didn't believe Tali'Zorah could do something damaging to the fleet. The bad news for Revan was most of the bystanders that spotted Legion reacted poorly. They were either scared or hostile, even if none of them dared to confront the group of 4. The small silver lining was that there were several individuals scattered among the crowd that were either neutral or even positive towards the lone Geth unit, reassuring Revan that there was a possibility of ending the Cold War between the two groups. While Revan was distracted with her plans, the group arrived at the Garden Plaza and were greeted by Admiral Shaylaran, a friend of Tolly's family and the one who managed to hold the trial long enough for them to actually arrive, even if she was forced to recuse herself from the trial because of her relationship with Tali'Zorah. But that came as a small consolidation when it was revealed that the rest of the Admiralty board moved to have Tali'Zorah stripped of her ship name and tried as Vas Normandy. A move that, in accordance with Revan's visions, basically declared Talai exiled already. This sounds like the decision has already been made. Shepard crossed her arms and looked at the Admiral. Is anything we say even going to make a difference? Don't worry about that. Talai still has friends that remember her as Vas Nima, no matter what we must call her legally. Just present the truth as best you can. It will have to be enough. Your teammate and, the Geth, can watch from the side. Will we be given the opportunity to speak as well? Shaylaran hesitated. Normally I would say so. As her shipmates you would be witnesses to her character. But neither of you are Quarians and the other admirals are pushing for this to be resolved quickly. I do not know. Maybe I could add whatever you need to say. Shepard offered, but Revan shook her head. She couldn't leave what needed to be done to the human. Not if things were going to play out like she planned. If that's all, come with me. Admiral Raan stated. I promised I would not delay you. Oh. The trial began with an almost prayer-like speech as the various people in the plaza settled in. While Shaylaran led the proceedings, Revan was busy matching the figures before her with the information she had requested from Edie and matching them to the snippets she had foreseen. On the left was Admiral Darkson, a scientist that held a certain fascination with the Geth and other AI. According to the files, Zen was very vocal about not only studying the Geth but also going on to create new forms of AI. Another thing Edie had highlighted was the Admiral's cold, almost psychopathic disregard towards others and the Geth in particular, and her desire to return the Geth to Quarian control. She was probably the most neutral of the board regarding the trial itself, but her desire to enslave the Geth meant she would be a nuisance should Revan actually secure an alliance between the Quarians and Geth. On the right was Admiral Hangarel. At first glance, he was solidly in Tali'Zorah's corner as a long-time friend of her father. But the fact that he allowed her to be stripped of her ship name, failed to recuse himself like Raan had done, and, if Revan's visions were accurate, failed to inform her of her father's death? No, Admiral Gerald might be friendly on the surface, but whatever friendship existed between him and Tolly's father wasn't enough to prevent him from using the latest incident to push for a more aggressive stance against the Geth. The final Admiral, Admiral Ziokoris, had the opposite outlook. He was vehemently opposed to renewing hostilities with the Geth in favor of finding a new world to colonize. A noble goal if that was his focus. Unfortunately, process of elimination meant he was the one looking to make an example out of the trial for anyone involved in experiments on the mechanical race. Something he proved as soon as he spotted Legion. Security. A Geth is present in the courtroom. Does Tali'Zorah think to affect this hearing with threats? Overall, Revan thought it was a clever move. Corys did not actually call for Legion to be removed from the trial or to be attacked. He simply drew attention to Legion and made an insinuation about why Talai had it brought here. Either Legion was removed and Tali'Zorah lost some of her support, or the Quarians needed to allow a Geth to sit among them peacefully. Even if they didn't like it. Going by the wave of unease and shouts, the general population really didn't like it. Captain Dana allowed the Geth aboard. Do you intend to second-guess the Raya's captain, Admiral Corys? Shaylaran demanded, silencing many of the voices. Corries looked around at the gathered crowd and Revan could feel his contentment at Ran's stance. Objection withdrawn. Shepherd Vas Normandy, your crewmember Talizora stands accused of treason. Will you speak for her? Ran continued, but Revan did not miss the flash of dislike for her fellow admiral. It seems Corries's play had not gone unnoticed. I'd be glad to. But in her heart, she remains Talizora Vas Nima. A proud member of the migrant fleet, Shepherd said before glaring at the board. I just regret that her captain was forbidden to stand at her side today. It was statements like those that honestly made Revan question if Shepherd was as politically ignorant as she claimed. In one statement she had highlighted the Admiralty Board practically announcing their decision before Talizora could even defend herself, insinuated that she was speaking for Talai not because she felt a human could represent Talai better but because she was all Talai had, and thrown the legitimacy of the whole trial into question. Corries tried to deny it but Gerald supported Talai against his political rival. Once again the crowd was thrown into a frenzy and it looked like the two admirals were going to end up fighting each other before Shaileran managed to calm everyone down and proceed with the trial. There was nothing shocking at first. Just some retreading over the same information Talai had received about bringing active Geth back to the fleet, which was then clarified as parts that could spontaneously reactivate by Admiral Zen when Shepherd sarcastically asked how Talai could ship something the size of Legion with no one noticing. Talai confirmed that while she had sent parts back to the fleet, she had made sure they were inactive. That was when Corries pounced. Then explain how Geth seized the lab ship where your father was working. If Talizora had been fully aware of whatever experiments her father was running and they had been on active Geth, this would have been the final nail Corries needed to paint this entire situation as the result of experimenting on the Geth. If Talai and her father had just left them alone, the whole thing could have been prevented. Unfortunately for him, Talai had no idea what project her father was running. In many ways she was less informed than many of the bystanders here. And her shock and fear about her father were very obvious to the crowd, possibly half convincing many of them that she had nothing to do with any active Geth. What are you talking about? What happened? As far as we can tell, Talai, the Geth have killed everyone on the Alarii, your father included. Admiral Gerald said solemnly, but Revan could feel the spark of guilt. Had he had a hand in the project and was using Talai to cover his tracks? Was it because he knew this was the first time the girl had heard that her father was probably dead? Some other reason? The Sith didn't know, but she made sure to remember it. Shepherd instantly offered the Normandy to assist in retaking the Alarii in another of her unconsciously brilliant political moves. The safest course of action would be to simply destroy the ship, Corries remarked to a great deal of negative reactions from the crowd. The Quarians were always short on ships. None of them were eager to simply destroy one even if it had been taken over. But if you are looking for an honorable death, instead of exile. I'm looking for my father, you Boshtet. Talai raged back. This course of action is incredibly dangerous. Shaileran spoke up. Are you sure you wish to attempt to retake the Alarii? The good of the fleet has to come first. Anyone not familiar with Shepherd would have thought she was being sincere, and Talai needs to find her father. Revan noticed the flicker of guilt Gerald felt only increased when it was confirmed that Talai would take on the mission, prompting him to offer her name being cleared of the treason charge if she died in the attempt, though Corries noted that would be discussed later. Revan, you coming? Shepherd asked when she noticed that neither Legion or the Sith had moved to follow her. Go on and deal with the Alarii, Commander. I will stay here and make sure the admirals don't try anything until you get back. Revan replied. Damn, didn't think of that. Kinda was hoping for your help, but that sounds like a better use of your skills. Shepherd cursed and triggered her calms. Hey Jacob? We've got a mission. Grab a hardsuit and anything you think will be effective against some Geth. Not long after the Normandy team left for the Alarii, maybe half an hour at most, the Admiralty Board pushed for a continuation of the trial in absentia, thanks to both Admirals Corries and Zen not wanting to spend more time waiting for a group when several teams of Quarian Marines had failed already. While it is unfortunate that Tali'Zorah seemed ignorant to the details of her father's actions, Zyorkoris began, it does not change the fact that she must have sent Geth materials. This is an undoubtable fact that we have detailed records of. And do those records tell you what parts and the condition of those, Admiral? Revan called loudly, stepping forward to where Shepard and Talai had stood before. They do not. The files we have are simple manifests. The more detailed records would have been stored on the Alarii. Darkson replied, records you conveniently cannot present while determining the guilt of the daughter of a fellow admiral. One you have already left for dead. Revan pointed out. We did not abandon the Alarii. Hangarel snapped. We sent in some of our best Marines to search for survivors and they were torn apart. As much as we may wish otherwise, the Geth are too dangerous to keep throwing our people away for crew that are already dead and have endangered the fleet in the process of their secret experiments. Revan smiled even if no one could see it. Secret experiments, secret experiments. For something so secretive, it certainly sounds like all three of you admirals were aware that Rael'Zorah was experimenting with something and were content to leave it be until it blew up in his face. Rael'Zorah was one of our foremost scientists as well as a fellow admiral. Darkson said coldly. We do not hold each other's hand every moment of the day to make sure the correct decisions are made. We allowed him his privacy, and this was the result. But you don't deny knowing about the experiment. Revan wasn't about to let them hide that fact with some clever wordplay. We are not the ones on trial here today, human. Hangarel interjected. You might as well be. You see, while you have been taking advantage of this incident to advance your own goals at the expense of Tali'Zorah, she was busy laying the foundations to end the conflict with the Geth. Taking advantage? Several of the admirals seemed offended by the statement, but Corries was the one to speak. How dare you insinuate that we care more about personal plans than the safety of this fleet? You, who even are you? Revan let her next words reverberate in the Force, letting everyone who listened know what she said was the truth. I am Darth Revan, Empress of the Geth. As Revan expected, the Force-enhanced declaration sent the Quarians into a panic. Bystanders scrambled to get away from her, the admirals ducked behind their podiums, and a security team rushed to take aim at her. Not a surprising reaction to someone declaring themselves the ruler of a faction that nearly drove their race to extinction in a way they were unable to deny. But as amusing as it was to watch the chaos unfold, Revan had things to do. And weakening her position by allowing someone to be accidentally trampled to death wasn't part of her plan. She reached out into the Force and surrounded every person there. Then, with a flex of her will, froze them all in a stasis field. Force stasis was not one of Revan's preferred battlefield techniques. Surrounding your enemy with the Force to simply lock them in place never really appealed to her when she could just remove them permanently in other ways. But its utility was not lost on her, and the advantages of keeping a captive audience from hurting someone in a panic. Let's not do something you might not live to regret. Revan chided the Quarians and started rearranging things to her liking. The security team's weapons were telekinetically stripped and piled in a corner. The bystanders were returned to where they had been standing. The admirals were placed where Tali'Zorah had stood. The doors to the chamber hissed shut and were covered by a lightly glowing Force barrier. And Revan calmly walked to where Admiral Shaylaran had stood, followed by Legion, who took a guard position below her to the left. Now then. Perhaps we can all calm down and discuss things like civilized people, the Sith said, releasing her captives. If you think we will simply drop the trial after this display. Admiral Corries began before getting cut off by a bark of laughter. The trial? You think I care about your rigged little performance? You've already admitted to knowing what was being sent back and about Admiral Zorah's projects, even if not the particulars. It is clear that either you knew Tali'Zorah was not sending back anything too dangerous that it required additional checks by the fleet and are simply using her as a pawn for your own ends, or you are simply incompetent and have no business being in your position. No, what I care about is the future. The future of this galaxy, this fleet, and the Quarian race. Because if the correct steps are not taken soon, all three might end. And after what I witnessed today, two of those may end sooner than the other. Threats already? Darkson asked. This chamber is broadcasted to the fleet on an open channel. If you harm us, you will not leave alive. But for a few concessions, perhaps we could come to an agreement? Revan made an amused sound. And what would that be? We will ignore your actions in exchange for the method you use to control the Geth. I will even motion to pardon Tali'Zorah in return. That caused several protests from the crowd and other admirals. Some were outraged that Zen was offering a pardon without consulting anyone, some were vehemently against anything to do with the Geth, and Revan's personal favorite was Admiral Corrie's condemning Revan for enslaving a sentient species. Enough. It took only one word and some light pressure in the Force to silence the crowds. The Dark Lady looked at Darkson and smiled. It doesn't surprise me you would be the one to make this offer, Admiral Zen. After all, this trial doesn't hold any real significance to you. It doesn't affect your plans at all. Neither of us have any hidden plans either. Gerald protested with Corrie's agreeing soon after. Unsurprising, as anything other than a swift denial would paint them as abusing their position. Revan just waved them off. Spare us, your plans are anything but hidden, she said dismissively. You, Gerald, are planning on using this event to reinforce what you have already been supporting with the more militant members of the fleet. The Geth are dangerous. We need to deal with them first or they will come to us. A rallying cry many will take to heart alongside their desire to reclaim your homeworld and will push for war. She turned to the other admiral. And you, Corrie's. What was it you said to Tali'Zorah on her way out? A message needs to be sent. You desire to make an example of someone as lauded and respected as her so that it becomes clear that any actions against the Geth will carry harsh penalties, no matter who you are, and that you must seek a path away from them where no conflict can occur. Revan studied both men for a second. You are both fools. The two admirals made angry sounds, but Revan simply turned back to Darkson. Back to you. You simply will go with whatever seems to be the popular decision because you already have what you desire. Perhaps the details of the experiment were already shared with you. Perhaps you have a way to hack the files needed. It doesn't matter. You simply do not care. All you want to know is how to bring the Geth under your control. Yes, because they are our creations. Simply a broken machine that needs to be recalibrated to its true purpose, Zen said. And one you must have figured out if they serve you. Revan Empress did not coerce the Geth. Options were discussed after Creator Tali'Zorah was threatened with exile. Previous negotiations rendered unlikely. New agreements were proposed by Revan Empress. The Geth consensus determined Representative Revan Empress has an 63.7% chance of preventing war between Geth and Creators. Following her leadership was the optimal choice. Legion replied, causing some severe muttering to break out among the bystanders. You mean to say she just asked to be the Geth don't want war? Shaylaran interrupted her fellow admiral. And what negotiations? What were you all planning? Legion simply looked at Ran, the limited expressions it could make giving nothing away. Seeing that the Geth didn't seem like it was going to answer, Revan spoke up. Before the treason accusation, Tali'Zorah, Legion, and I all came to a perfunctory agreement to get the Geth and Quarians to end the hostilities. Both groups would work through me as a mediator in exchange for assisting me prepare for the Reaper threat. What could you hope to offer the Geth that we, their creators, could not accomplish? Zen demanded. Or offer us to go along with that madness? Gerald added. At first it was going to be hardware upgrades and slight improvements the Geth could study. Revan explained. The Geth wanted to forge their own path, but they recognized the threat coming for us all, and were willing to seek help. Preposterous. If what you say is true, the Geth had no intention of naming you a ruler. Corrie's objected. Revan nodded her head. That was before the one person they could use to talk with the migrant fleet was threatened. Without the Quarians to balance out the negotiations, all they could offer me for what they wanted was to serve me. You made a grab for power, Corys accused, slamming a hand on the banister in front of him. The Sith rolled her eyes. Some people were simply incapable of recognizing their hypocrisy. Yes, I saw an opportunity and seized it. She reached into her robes and pulled out a small hollow emitter disc. Lightly tossing it into the middle of the court, the device sprang to life and began playing footage of the battle for the Citadel. The Council had done their best to suppress and erase all footage of the event, but it was a simple task to download the vids Revan wanted from Cerberus servers. The crowd watched in fascinated silence as the Reaper ship Sovereign and the heretic Geth Armada cut through both the Citadel defense fleet and then the human reinforcements before the Reaper was finally overwhelmed and destroyed. Despite what the rest of the galaxy wishes to believe, Sovereign was not a Geth superweapon or prototype. This was a Reaper. An ancient machine whose only purpose is the elimination of all significantly advanced life. And they are coming. Tomorrow, a year from now, or in your children's lifetime, we do not know, but they are coming. And the Quarians are currently the weakest of all races. As anticipated, Revan's casual dismissal of their strength unified the gathered Quarians. Even if some were concerned about the Geth, concerned about corruption among the admirals, or some other reason, nothing brought people together than a common enemy. We survived on our own for centuries. We're the best engineers anywhere. Who do you think you are? We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. Shouts, insults, and other such vocal expressions echoed around the chamber as the assembly raged against her. Revan let them, knowing that they needed to vent some emotion from her holding them captive so easily. She was on a time limit though. A slight mental pressure on everyone gathered quieted everyone down. I take it you disagree. Hangarol shoved his way back to the front of the crowd. Of course we do. The migrant fleet isn't so weak as to fall to a single ship, no matter how advanced. If the Citadel and Alliance forces could destroy one, then so could we. There was a surging cheer that followed his words. And what about two? Revan's force-enhanced voice cut through their jubilation and bravado like one of her lightsabers. 3? Could you continue to do so without a proper shipyard to repair your damages? Could you stop them from simply doing a suicide run on your life ships? No, you cannot. And that is why the Quarians are the weakest race. A few battles and you will be inconsequential to simply hunt into extinction. There was dead silence. And I suppose you have a solution for this? Shaylaran prompted eventually. Tali'Zorah obviously did not willingly commit the treason she was accused of, so you must have offered her something she would have considered worth an alliance with the Geth. It seemed Shaylaran was using this opportunity to establish Tali'Zorah's innocence as fait accompli. How sneaky, and the Admiral had gall to pretend Quarian politics was straightforward. Indeed. Under the initial agreement the Geth and Quarians would cease hostilities, the Geth would receive hardware and upgrades, and the Quarians would be given Rannoch. Despite expecting it, the surge of emotions in the Force nearly knocked Revan over. It wasn't the reaction of those in the room, or even the people watching elsewhere on the Raya. The hopes, doubts, fears, and desperation of every Quarian from oldest to youngest sang through the Force. Rannoch? We could go home? She didn't know who said it, but the fragile hope in their voice made Revan almost hate what she was about to say. But the galaxy wasn't going to be saved by playing nice. That was the original agreement. Of course things have changed since then. I now rule the Geth for one, Rannoch is not theirs to give. For another, the agreement was made with Tali'Zorah with the assumption she had the support of the Admiralty Board. Unless Rael'Zorah is alive, only Shaylaran seems to fully support her. Not enough for me to trust the Quarians on her word alone. The previous agreement is no longer valid. Revan could have killed one of them and not gotten the same shock her words caused. To hear that they were that close? Just one agreement from going home and it was snatched away? If Revan left right now, she wouldn't put credits on any admiral besides Shayla surviving 2 days. The previous one, maybe, but nothing is stopping us from creating a new agreement, is there? You wouldn't be putting on this show if you didn't have something in mind. Admiral Corries also realized the danger he and his fellow admirals were in and didn't hesitate to open negotiations. Revan leaned forward and smiled. This was it. The final stage of her plan. Of course we can negotiate a new deal. Here are my terms. I will allow the migrant fleet to settle on Rannoch, provide you similar technology I am offering the Geth, and assist with settlement efforts. In exchange, you will join my empire. Why you're asking us to give you everything? A random Quarian whimpered. I am. Revan's response was instant. I rule the Geth. It is my responsibility to ensure they are protected. Whether that is from a military threat, she looked at Hangarel, or from someone trying to control and exploit them. Her gaze shifted to Darkson. So I will destroy the Quarian threat to my people. But that does not mean you get nothing in return. By becoming citizens under my rule, that same protection extends to you. It also puts us completely at your mercy, Gerald pointed out. And even in exchange for the homeworld, there are many of us that are itching for a fight. What will happen to them? No, to us. Revan felt a bit of respect for the Admiral. At least he was self-aware. You will have your fight. The Reapers won't just give up because we band together. But there are other enemies we will have to fight even before them. Parasites that bleed the galaxy white simply because they are allowed to run amok unopposed by the established powers. Slavers, pirates, saboteurs. These have been preying on the migrant fleet for centuries, and you could not do anything about them without risking annihilation. But joining the Empire changes that. With access to permanent infrastructure and allies willing to stand beside you, no more will you need to send your young to beg for scraps, for bits of technology that will let you hang on just a little while longer. Instead they will be able to explore the galaxy because they wish to. No more will you need to fear that a single lost ship will mean the loss of a home or never be replaced as it crumbles around you. We will build vessels like this galaxy has never seen before. And we will take the fight to those that preyed on the helpless. We will root out the pirate dens, slaver nests, and the rest of the scum and make sure that when the next generation ventures out into the stars, it is because they will be explorers, innovators, and adventurers. Not thieves, beggars, and scavengers. Revan slammed a fist down on the podium in front of her and poured her conviction into the Force. Yes, she would use the Quarians. They would serve her in her mission to save the galaxy, but they would not be mere tools. They would be Empire. So, will you join me? Keela se lay. The answering roar was particularly encouraging. The Sith Lord took a step back. Good. Discuss my proposal among yourselves. I will hear your final answer in 2 hours. That should give Shepard plenty of time to finish dealing with the situation on the Alarii and return.